I'm here.
Hi,
How
okay,
you
Denny.
doing?
How are you? And
Oh,
thank you.
I'm hanging in there. Let's say that. I got to switch glasses. How
Okay,
are you doing?
doing
You doing
great.
good?
You have been doing a lot of work because you've been on the show three
Yeah,
times with three different books in the last, I want to say 18 months.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so and when I saw this book, I said, did he just she just put out the other princess, and we're giving away a copy of the other princess after the end of
Okay, that's
so
nice.
yeah.
Yay, other princess.
So
Which one are we
really
talking?
been
This is Crazy Pants. Which one are we talking about tonight? This one, I
this
think.
yeah.
Okay,
That's the one we're
okay. The
talking
brain
about
is
tonight.
working. We're in
Okay.
full mode.
You know what?
Oh, here we go.
I'm gonna tell you, we need somebody like you because this is a 2 hour show. I'm in the DMV. It is not at night. And sometimes we need somebody like you who comes on the show and just wakes everybody up.
Who cuts up because that's hey, I gotta cut up because for me, because I'm they changed the time and you'd think I'd be all perky and everything, but I'm like sleeping too late in the morning and want to go to bed at like 6 o'clock. I don't know. It's, I'm
Where are
just
you
working
located?
too much. Working too much.
Where are you located?
I'm in Savannah, where
Savannah,
it is
Georgia.
75 degrees today.
Oh, wow. I used to live in that area. I used to live in Richmond Hill.
Oh, well, I'm not that familiar with Savannah. I've lived here for like 4 years from DC, but 2 of those years I didn't leave the house. And then I just didn't go no place. And then now I'm either where I am now in my office or I'm on heading to the airport because I live out in Pooler, what
Yes.
what they used to call Pooler. Now they say it's Savannah. I don't know.
Oh,
Uh,
it's not anymore?
they keep changing the name of the town.
Oh.
I'm fine.
Say Richmond Hill is right outside of Savannah.
Okay.
So I used to be when I was in the army, I was stationed at Fort Stewart, but
Okay.
I lived in Richmond Hill, which was about 30 minutes away from Fort Stewart. And then everywhere I used to hang out in Savannah. And so
Yeah.
that was about a 30-minute drive as well.
Right. Well, I live about 20 minutes outside of Savannah. I'm like 5 minutes from the airport.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Well, I
that's
know
real.
exactly where you are. But I
Mhm.
will tell
And
you,
that's actually very convenient for my schedule lately because,
Yes, I
as I
bet.
said, I
it's a
just
great
jumped to
city,
the
by the way.
airport.
It's been building up.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's definitely the last year. Actually, for the next month and well, next 3 months, I'm pretty much on the road and still have books to deliver and things like that because it's very exciting and talking about Can't We Be Friends, which I co-authored with my pal Eliza Knight.
Yes.
This book is, we were just so excited a week ago today when on the Today Show, Kennedy Ryan, the fabulous romance author extraordinaire, was on the show talking about the release of her new book. And
Mhm.
she pulls up and talks about Nikki Payne's new book and this one. And we've been riding that high since. So it's very exciting.
Well,
Um,
that's awesome. I
have
mean,
people be aware that the book is out there.
awesome. You're getting mentions in big places.
Yes, yes. And that helps so much in addition to talking to you, talking about the book wherever we can. We're doing a tour. We'll be in Tampa Bay, Florida. We'll be in the DMV. I'll be in DC in a couple of weeks. I mean, we're just traveling all over the place, um, talking about the book, and we've gotten such fabulous feedback from readers, between Goodreads and people talking about the book on Amazon. One of the um, things that keep coming through from readers is the story is such an intimate tale of friendship between two women, and how that friendship helped their lives, or in a way that was not exploitive or over the top, to the best of each woman's ability, especially considering the time period. And one of the things that people sometimes don't get about historical biographical fiction is that it is fiction, but it's rooted in fact. And part of what Eliza and I did and spent a lot of time doing was research and finding things like the contract for the Friends album that Ella and Marilyn had planned to do together. And that didn't work out. Some of Marilyn's quotes about her favorite person and her reference to Ella Fitzgerald. Ella, on the other hand, was a very private person. So to find her voice and her spirit, not only did I listen to all of her albums, but that wasn't new because I am a huge fan of music and jazz.
I remember you saying that with all of your books, you listen to the music of the time period.
No matter what time period I'm writing in, I'm listening to the music because and that keeps me grounded. Even if I'm going all the way back, like in The Other Princess, it starts, and I think in 1835 or 40 or something like that. But to go in and do research on the sounds of African music, West African music, and what were the instruments of that time period. And historically, they go back even further than that. If you do, the museums, the robber barons of museum, and that's a whole other thing that I can go on and on about. But it's just enjoyable to find that connection through sound and people and what they heard, what they listened to, what they ate, etc. So with Ella, I listened to all of her albums, but I paid special attention to her live albums because that's where her banter with the audience gave me some real insights to her personality. She was essentially soft-spoken. She wasn't a good interviewee. I mean, she's so soft-spoken, she rarely looked an interviewer in the eye, even later in life. She just wasn't comfortable in that context. But on stage, she commanded the stage. She knew every part, every musician on the stage with her turned to her to really know where they were in that particular number and where she wanted them to go. And then her banter with the audience was, she was surprising. She wasn't messing around. There's one in particular I recall that she was being given request after request. And she's like, look, that album came out 2 years ago. You should have bought it. Because she was done. It's like, I have sang that particular song. She didn't say what I'm about to say right now because now I'm running my mouth. But the takeaway for me was she sang that song enough. If they want to hear it again, they need to go spend some money in addition to the money they spent for being there. So people, you think about an Ella Fitzgerald for the last 30 years, and the last thing, unless you're a jazz person, is the Memorex commercial. And in this book, she's in her 30s. She's a young woman. And again, most people, the memory is of her in her later life. And so it was just fun. And then working with Eliza Knight, it was really enjoyable because we really dug in on not wanting to overdo or redo the Marilyn story. We wanted to take a fresh approach. And for us, that meant she was an intelligent woman. She was well-read. She was very, very ambitious. She had a mind for how she wanted her career to look. She was also an addict. Today we see it, we understand and know addiction is an illness. But back in the 50s, I mean, a lot of people may remember a Judy Garland story. They were stuffing, Hollywood was giving her, pills when she was 15, 16 years old, just to make sure she did things or was the right size or whatever it was. So there was a different attitude toward, taking whatever drug and whatever drug she was taking, how many ever drugs she was taking. So all of those things that we wanted to make sure really captured two women who were at the peak of their career and trying to stay there, trying to be relevant in the 50s when women had very little, they didn't have any thing that they could do for themselves. Power, yeah. There it is. Power was not theirs to hang on to. They were always being dismissed, And so ask me a question, because I'm ramble. There, I'll just like
you're giving us some really good insight on this.
Yeah.
Well,
so what period was it that you cover in the book? What years were they?
Predominantly the 1950s, 1952 to 1962. The book begins with a prologue in 1972. In 1972, Ms. Magazine had a whole issue dedicated to Marilyn Monroe on the 10th, recognition of 10th anniversary recognition of her passing in 1972. Plus, I think it was their second issue as well. And Ms. Magazine was making a very powerful, strong statement during that time period, as the people who started it, Gloria Steinem. There was also an African American woman who was a part of the Think Trust that developed that publication. I can't remember her name right now, but when that magazine and that issue was being put out in the world, they came to Ella and said, please, tell us about your memories of Marilyn Monroe. And that was something that we used, or that I used in that opening, to say, this would be sort of a nice kickoff to the story, so that she can reflect back on that friendship and also where her life was at in the 50s. She'd been in the biz for 19 years by then, but the biz was changing. So she was constantly trying to remain relevant. That's also a period during which she started to do all those song books, Cole Porter, Berlin, blah, blah, blah. She did all the song books by the Broadway musical composers and writers of several generations, those masters, if you will, in that area. And that was the brainchild of Norman Gantz. And he was her second manager. I think her first manager, his first name was Mo. Can't remember his last name. I've written 2 books since I wrote this one. I'll start throwing out anybody's name in a minute.
I get it.
I swear. Yeah,
the timelines can be the time with the big publishers, the time that the book is done, versus when it comes out is normally roughly 2 years. It might be a little shorter, but
it's according to how you're coming out and what's happening. I finished this book, or Eliza and I finished this book, probably 8 to 10 months ago. Okay. And then there's a whole bunch of processes that go through, after you hand it in to your editors. And then we gear up for the promotional campaign and what have you. But there's always surprises, like you can't predict someone grabbing your book and loving it enough to mention it on the Today Show, or some of the articles and just the reaction response on the Goodreads. We have some lovely blurbs from fantastic authors who are out there. Everybody from our cover quote from Vanessa Riley. And we have a whole bunch of people who read the book and gave us some fantastic feedback. And that always feels good as writers, because you're sitting there saying, okay, we did it and we think it's fabulous. Our editors say it's fabulous, but then you're sitting there saying, will readers love it too? Because the readers are the ones who open their pocketbooks and say,
Really
I'm going to buy
decide.
this. Yeah.
The
And then
readers really decide.
yeah, they do. They
Mhm.
really do.
Mhm.
And that's well, readers and a good advertising campaign can always help.
Yes, yeah. Mhm. But
Yeah.
even with advertising, if the readers don't really like it and talk it up, I mean, the
Mhm.
readers can talk it up, or they can talk it down, or just not talk,
Right. Yeah, or not say a
or
word.
not say anything.
Crickets.
So
And you're
yeah,
sitting there saying, oh my God, oh my God, nobody cares. So and that's real scary. Nobody cares. But I've been fortunate because my debut novel, I even have that baby here. I grabbed some novels while I was, yay, this was my first novel.
Mhm.
And that's in 2021.
Yeah,
So
you've been writing up a storm
I
and
have.
researching up a storm.
Yeah. Well, part of the reason is I've been fortunate enough to have contracts. Um, and I shouldn't even say fortunate. Strategically, I've had contracts. So writing books is what I do full time. And that's good. That's good. Well, full time, I also teach, but I teach remotely an MFA program at Drexel University. Hello, students, everyone at Drexel. Lovely program. I love it. Um, and then I don't do that much freelance writing anymore. A little bit, and I do a little less of the book critic role with NPR, but I still do a couple of things, a couple of times a year with them. I had the great pleasure of participating in the Savannah Book Festival as a moderator, and I got to talk to S.A. Cosby and two other gentlemen. S.A. Cosby wrote All Sinners Bleed, Razor
Yeah.
Blade Tears,
Yeah.
etc., etc. He's wonderful. But
Mhm.
I also was introduced to two novelists I wasn't familiar with, Charles Soule, who has a sci-fi time travel adventure book called The Endless Vessel that I fell in love with, and Greg Horowitz, who writes the Orphan X series. And I just stepped into that, I think book 7 or 8, I can't remember. And it was absolutely captivating. So, it was just fun to get into crime fiction, adventure fiction, a different genre, and then have an opportunity to talk to these gentlemen in front of like a packed house of 1,000 people. So it was a good time last month doing that sort of thing. And yeah, that's it.
What's that?
Yeah, I
Mhm.
enjoy that. I enjoy books, so as much as I can surround myself with books and talking about books, writing books, just doing that thing, I'm pretty excited about it. Um,
How did you settle on what made this topic come up? Who?
well, we actually, in 2019, I was still living in the DC area, and that's where Eliza lives. And so, what we would do, what we've been doing for about a year or so back then, was alternating between different homes for once a month for a write in. Because the whole writing lifestyle is like, I'm by myself again. So it's kind of fun to just hang out and at different people's homes and write, and usually end up drinking wine. But writing is an important part of that experience.
I need to come with you next time you're having these get-togethers.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're fun. But back in 2019, we were just messing around on the computer, looking at different things, and we ran across the Macombo Club. And there was actually a whole other story that we were digging into when we stumbled across the Ella Maryland photo that has been floating around for a long time. Of them, actually, it's the same one that has a version of which is on the cover. So we were like, what? Ella Fitzgerald, Marilyn Monroe, they were buds. Let's dig into the rabbit hole and see what we can find. And we were just digging and loving everything we found and said, this is a book. Great friendship, two powerful, super talented women, Black woman, white woman, Black woman who was experiencing some of the to be expected racism, segregation, battles, but primarily what she wanted to do was sing. She wanted to be on stage. That's what she wanted. The other things fell, away. So, and there was this story out there on the internet that said she could not get a job at the Macombo Club because they didn't hire Blacks. Well, that was not true. They hired, Lena Horne had already performed there. Eartha Kitt had performed there. Dorothy Dandridge had performed there. But there's something in common with those three ladies that may not jump to your mind right away.
It did.
Okay, they're all size 6 or 7.
Well, that too, but they also
I know the other one. But
that's what I was thinking too.
Yeah.
But it was her size that they did, the reason they didn't want to hire Ella.
Oh, okay. She
was
was
thick.
thick.
It's not stealth, And so it took, and the first club that she did in LA was not the Macombo Club. It was a place called Tiffany's. Tiffany's was on the other side, was a little bit off the strip. And that's where Marilyn had some influence, as well as later, because we found a letter that a secretary at the Macombo Club sent, I believe it was to Marilyn, Marilyn's secretary saying, is Marilyn still going to be here to do this party when Ella's here, blah, blah, blah. We just put the story together. One of the things that's mentioned, I think I can give it away early in the book for those who haven't bought it yet, but you're about to go and buy it, is that Jet Magazine, Dear Jet Magazine, had an article, I think it came out in 1951 or early 52. And the cover story was famous fat women. That was the cover story on Jet Magazine. And inside that article was Ella Fitzgerald, among other African-American. If you're not familiar with Jet Magazine, it was one of the, for the people watching out there might be some youngsters.
Youngsters. It was the weekly. It was the weekly.
It was
Every
the
Black home
publication.
If you were in Jet Magazine,
weekly.
Places.
Yes, exactly. So that Jet Magazine was a resource. I mean, I went through a lot of Jet magazines
because it was weekly, and it focused a lot on music.
The entertainment industry,
the top 10 songs or top 20 songs,
and the photos.
Yes, and the photos.
The photo of the week, the photo of the month, what have you. And that was a big part of it as well. And it was also a Chicago publication, and owned by, I believe,
sister to Ebony,
Johnson.
The
Johnson family, and who also owned Ebony magazine as well. But so in 2019, we found that, and we kept working on it, even though we were both writing different things. I hadn't even gotten a contract yet, or I'd just gotten the Wild Women in the Blues contract signed. So I had that book to put to bed, so to speak. Then I had another book, In the Face of the Sun. I had to get that book done. Meanwhile, Eliza, who's a much faster writer than I am, is producing other projects, including her. She was also doing a fabulous book. She did the Mayfair Bookshop, but then after the Mayfair Bookshop, she did starring Adele Astaire, a novel about Fred Astaire's sister. So we were both busy, but we kept talking about Ella and Marilyn. We just couldn't stop working on it. And so then we said, let's tell our respective agents, because at the time we had we have different agents, but at the time I was with another agent. And so we were like, hey, this book is happening. You just want to have it. I know you do, and you want to sell it. And they were like, I don't know. And then they got excited about it over time. And then we wrote up, I think we had about 3 or 4 chapters, a huge proposal, beautiful document, sent it off. Next thing you know, we got a contract. And then it was like, hurry, 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 hurry. So after all of that digging and research, we got it done. And then we had, one thing I love to say is that our initial work that we handed into our editor was a little bit longer than the book that people have in front of them today. So we were told to cut 30,000 words.
Ooh, that's a lot of work.
Yes!
That's a whole book.
That's a whole book. That's more than a novella.
Right? But that editor was spot on, because at the same time, we wrote a lot of story that didn't put the real story is about friendship. And so we need to get to it. And we did a lot of other story that we're going to roll out in newsletters. People follow us because you're going to get other stories down the road. Probably not this year, but definitely going to add some things. But she was right. So right. But in overwriting, and I don't consider it really overwriting, I think we dug in and understood our characters, our story, these women even more. And that's what helped us deliver what I feel is a very, very good book, quite honestly.
Okay, well, we only have a couple minutes left. And so I have one last question. Rhonda, do you have any more questions for Denny?
No, I mean, I'm just enjoying listening. I mean,
yeah, it's fascinating, all the research you all did. So I've never heard anything about Ella Fitzgerald's love life. And so I was wondering
how did that come
you
into
have
the
about
story?
that? Is that tied in? Or?
Well, there's a YouTube interview that she did in the 80s. And the question by the interviewer was, how come you avoided scandal? And while so many other entertainers were, she said, I don't know. There was a time where I fell in love with a man in Norway, but we couldn't be in love because back then you couldn't be black and white couple. That's what she said. And and all of the other stuff that you see and reading the story, those newspaper clips exist. Every last one. So she wanted to be married. She wanted it all. She wanted kids. She wanted a house. She wanted a home. She wanted a husband. She wanted her career. And she didn't get all of it all at the same time. Later in life, we don't cover it in the book. I feel she did. She ended up moving to Copenhagen. She had a house in, she took care of herself.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, Denny, you are just a wealth of information. And every time that you come on the show, we get a master class in whatever time period you're covering. And whoever is is notable in that time. So,
Well, thank you. Thank you for inviting me. And
oh,
I have another book coming out in a few months. So
okay, I was gonna ask you.
But you need to come back when the new book is ready.
okay.
Yeah.
This one's I'll talk quickly. It's called
Okay.
The Trial of Mrs. Rhinelander. It's based on another true story about a case that was sensational front page news in the 1920s, and it had to do with a very wealthy New York, millionaire kind of real estate guy who married a domestic and then decided to get an annulment when he caught wind of the fact that she might be colored. And that ended up being front page news. And it's called
Oh,
the Rhinelander versus Rhinelander case, is what it's inspired by.
oh, okay. You always
Nothing
finding
much to
stuff.
believe.
But
History.
it's amazing, and I love it. I love that people are unearthing
Yeah.
history,
Yes.
and
Lots
it's
of good stories out there. And
great
hopefully,
stories.
if you've had Rashonda Tate and
Oh
the
yeah,
Queen
she was
of Sugar
on.
Hill.
Yeah, she was on 3 weeks ago or something like that.
Okay.
Yeah, so
Fabulous
yeah,
book. Yeah.
yeah, we stay on top of it.
Okay. That's good.
Okay,
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
thank you
And
so
thank
much, Denny. And when people get a chance, show the book cover one more time.
Oh, yes,
Yeah,
please. Bye.
and
Bye.
we be friends.
That's
Go out and
Marilyn.
web
That's
it.
Ella.
Yes, Ella Fitzgerald and
Eliza Knight
Marilyn
and Denny
Monroe.
S. Bryce. Thank you.
Okay, thanks a lot. Have a great evening,
You too.
and we'll have you back on when the next book comes out for sure.
Okay. All right.
Okay,
Bye-bye.
bye bye.